Yeah, for sure. So Cooleaf is we're a technology company that focuses in on the employee experience, and essentially what our purpose is to ensure that um, really organizations can provide extraordinary employee experiences for every individual that comes through the doors, basically the virtual doors or the physical doors, whatever it might be. We're doing some work outside of employee experience that's relatively small part of our business now that we anticipate growing as well around product experience and customer experience.
Mm.
But really, we're focused pretty heavily right now on employee experience. And the idea is that when you think about employee experience, we break it down to three kind of core components. One is a phenomenal, extraordinary, employee experience requires an employer to listen to their folks, to listen to their people, and do so in a way that is strategic, but also is not just once a year, it's constant.
Yep.
And so we've built in capabilities around pulse surveying. We've also built in this idea that listening can't just be qualitative, it has to actually be quantitative as well. So we deeply integrate into platforms like SalesLoft, Salesforce, Zendesk, HubSpot, other platforms like learning platforms, Litmos, Lessonly, you name it. There's tons of different SaaS integrations that we've developed
Sure.
to allow for both quantitative listening and qualitative listening. So the idea is that you've got a team of people, they're dispersed around the world potentially now, around the country. Some of them may be coming back into physical, most of them are going to be staying virtual, some of them may be like a mix of two. When you're working like that, you've got SaaS platforms that you're mainly doing a lot of your core competent, your sort of core activities around. So we listen to both the SaaS signals and we also listen to pulsing. So we provide the ability to do pulse surveying to our for employers to do that to their employees, as well as, like I said, listen to those quantitative signals.
Yeah.
We then take the second step, which is the first step then is listen. The second step is then engage, right? So once you've taken and ingested that data, what do you do with it? What actions can you take? Should you, for example, do a better job at recognizing and rewarding and highlighting the accomplishments of your team? Should you, for example, have data that tells you you should run performance incentive, small challenges, or small incentive, different campaigns that you can run? Are you listening to the types of programming that your employees want and developing things like wellness programming, health and wellness programming, diversity and inclusion programming? We provide a partnership to our customers to help them with programming around that through
Yep.
things like company challenges, their own events that they might be doing. So listen, engage them, and then really measure what you're doing. So across those performance incentives, those recognition rewards, so those virtual challenges and activities that are happening through our platform. There's a lot of data that's being generated around that. How do you take that, iterate your strategy? What's working well? What's working different? What's not working so well? Where's that working well? What departments, divisions, which locations should we be focusing in on? We provide a slew of analytics around that from executive dashboards as well as sort of manager level dashboarding to help with those decisions and really understand those investments that you're making on the employee experience. How are they working? What do you need to
Yep.
tweak and optimize, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I read and I wrote some stuff about there's this Gallup poll that came out that talks about employee engagement, and some of the things that it highlighted was, uh, for example, the relationships that you have are important, like the level of engagement a manager has to the employee, and some of the things we do at Risk 360 is like we run like a 100-mile relay race. We have like a coaching program. We have all these things that we're trying to like be authentic about caring about each other, which you
Yeah,
can't fake.
yeah.
So that translates into a question for you. I imagine you guys probably have some customers that, are the top performers of employee engagement and some that are not the top performers.
hmm
Have you noticed any patterns in terms of like what are the really good employers doing that are top notch in terms of engagement and employee satisfaction versus the ones that aren't?
Yeah. So it's actually like kind of funny because it's pretty simple. Like the first thing beyond anything that you need to have for this to work, and the most important thing is executive leadership all the way up to the CEO that believes in caring for their people
Yeah.
and that believes that, people oftentimes with millennial and Gen Z um, have not been given the fair shake that prior generations have relative to things like student debt, relative to things like, pensions, relative to things like unions, right? Like there's a lot that this, upcoming generation, current generation in the workplace today, and obviously with Gen Z now, has not been dealt in terms of their hand. And so the real question is, do you care for people, right? Now, if you just see your business as like, yeah, I want to make a bunch of money and, I'm interested in driving forward no matter what. I don't really care. I can always find another person to do this job. Probably not the best fit for us as in terms of a
Sure.
customer, right?
Yeah.
And so what we find is that the best customers already believe in doing great things like that. They potentially are even doing things like becoming B Corps themselves, or they're really interested in getting on the top workplace lists, or maybe they already are on the top workplace list. We worked with a number of folks that are already there, have like stayed towards the top of that list, and we've worked with folks that aspire to do much better and to raise up in those rankings or to even get on the rankings in the first place, right? And that's the most critical ingredient to what we do. It's that buy-in at the leadership level that, hey, like we have a lot as executives, and what we should be thinking about now is what's happening in the world and how people are thinking about this from an employee standpoint, the types of things they're looking for. You know, you might have been able to get away with things that you probably won't be able to get away with now as we start entering a period of fairly rapid and aggressive growth over the next year and a half, 2 years, as most economists forecast, right? So we feel like we're well positioned both in terms of the generational change that's happening in the
Yeah.
workplace, as well as the leadership changes that are starting to happen. You're starting to see things like boomers retiring, and you're starting to see Gen X rise into leadership ranks. And Gen X thinks about things very differently than boomers have. And
Yeah.
traditionally, that's been, a little bit of an issue, I think, in the workplace. And so as you see that generational momentum shift, um, we believe that right now it's still perceived by many organizations as this nice to have. But it's getting to a point where if you don't have an answer for how you do public recognition, how you quickly incentivize certain actions, and you don't believe that the work itself is getting atomized even further into smaller components, and you don't have an answer to address how you incentivize specific areas, how you streamline the way in which you recognize and reward, how you make it systematic as opposed to one-off and informal, then we're probably not going to be a great fit. But if you already believe in those things, you're already doing things around them, you want to do better, you think there's ways to automate some of that, we're going to be a great fit.